So, hey, Mike, it's good connecting with you again, and thanks for taking the time to join us today. For those listening, Mike and I first met at Investor Fuel in Orlando, which he runs, and we'll dive into that later in the episode. So, on Investor 101, we bring top real estate investors to share their journeys, insights, and strategies with the goal of inspiring and empowering the incredible community we all love. Today, we'll explore what real estate means to you, Mike, your personal journey, and some of the tips and strategies that have been driving your success. So, whether you're starting out or looking to grow, there's something here for everyone. So, let's jump in. Mike, you've had such an impressive journey in real estate, from flipping hundreds of houses to building thriving communities like Flip Nerd and Investor Fuel. Can you start out by telling us a bit about your background, what do you do today, and what first inspired you to dive into the world of real estate investing?
Sure, yeah. I started real estate investing in 2008. I kind of refer to myself as a corporate refugee because I was essentially climbing the corporate ladder, my wife and I both. And 2000, when 2008, well, really 2000, if I go back to 2006, I ended up getting fired from like a dream job that was great. And it really wasn't my uh, doing. It was my boss got fired, and then I was kind of like, part of the package, I guess. So, um, and that was my first realization of like working really, really hard for somebody else and not having control. Then I went to work for a startup that was flying high, was doing really well. I was making more money than ever before. And then they ended up filing for bankruptcy shortly after. I was there for about 18 months. And it was just this realization that like I don't have control here no matter how hard I work and no matter what I do. And so I'd always been entrepreneurial. I'd always been interested in real estate investing. And that really was the beginning of my entrance into real estate investing was the summer of 2008. Now, that also happened to be the time when everybody else was running away from real estate. We were just truthfully, I'll say a little bit naive as to what was going on in the market. But the reality is it turned out to be one of the very best times to get in when everybody else is, as Warren Buffett says, when everybody else is fearful, that's when you should be aggressive. And that's exactly what we did.
It's an amazing start to your journey. And speaking of beginnings, let's talk about your first deal. Can you share the story of your first house flip and how that experience shaped your journey in real estate investing until today?
First deal. Yeah, very first deal that we got was in Irving, Texas. I flipped about 400 houses, so still remember that one as our first one. Probably the hardest flip ever. It was the most distressed, had the worst foundation. We have a lot of foundation problems here. It was infested with snakes and rats and all kinds of stuff. Really kind of disgusting, kind of a textbook like flip house. It would have been great for a flipping show because it was full of drama. Um, but it ended up just that, like I'll tell you like a short little parable that kind of happened there. A story is the neighbor had recently had her elderly parents move in with her because they needed some help, and she had told me like how gross this house was, how much they hated it. It was the eyesore in the neighborhood. And I said, well, we're gonna fix this up. Like maybe your parents could move in next door. And she was like, over my dead body, there's no chance my parents will ever live in that house. And but they just didn't have the vision as a real estate investor as we do as to how to overcome all that, right? In my mind, there's going to be a brand new house here at some point in the near future, and in her mind, there's no way that could ever, be nice enough for my parents. But sure enough, the parents kept it. They kept, they were on walkers and canes and kept coming out and watching us flip this house for what ended up being is my first one. So something that should have been a month was probably 3 or 4 months um, and watching the progress there. And ultimately, they ended up paying cash for the house the day we were about to put it on the market. And she moved her parents in next door to this kind of beautiful new house right next door. So a lot of times as real estate investors, if there's a story there, a lot of people don't see your vision. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It means that you should just prove them wrong, I guess.
All about the vision. I love that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, now I know you're a coach, you have all these amazing meetups and all these other ventures that you're working on. Many of your students are following you in your footsteps, and some have even left their jobs to pursue real estate as a full time. So, talking about your students, what do you think is the most common mindset shift that enables them to take that leap to going into real estate? And what's the best way for someone to start investing in today's market?
Yeah, so if you're talking about new, like newbies, brand new people that are getting started, I think some of the challenges is that there's really two things I'll say is people tend to want immediate gratification. I mean, that's the world we live in now. Like I want something, I can go on Amazon and order it and maybe even be here the same day, if not the next day, right? And we just want this immediate gratification. But the reality is in the entrepreneurial world or in the real world, I'll say, like it takes time to see success. And there's no real overnight successes. It's certainly not anybody that would last, right? And so you have to be willing to put in your dues and build up the skill base so that you can be successful in that and be willing to be punched in the face and fall down and scrape your knees and just get right back up and do it over and over again. So I think, people need to be willing to fail many, many times. But as I like to say, failure isn't final unless you quit. So fail, but fail forward, fail and learn what not to do, and just keep moving forward. The other thing that I'll say is I feel like kind of tied to that, there's a lot of people that have a tendency to be too comfortable in a job or too comfortable doing something that they don't like. And so I'm always a little hesitant to tell people to do this. I don't really want it to be my decision for anybody to quit their job, but I can tell you that most of the people that I've seen that have been successful over the last 15 years and knowing the story of literally hundreds and hundreds of professional real estate investors is it's a common scenario to where people kind of burn their boats and failure wasn't an option. They just went all in on that thing. And I think sometimes it's too easy to want to get started as a real estate investor, but I'll start right after the new year. I'm gonna wait till the summer's done. Like they're just too comfortable where they're at, and you almost need to get yourself to a point to where you're really uncomfortable, and you're not willing to fail, right? So you just kind of burn the boats and plow forward. So if you don't like literally burn the boats, quit your job and do all that, you definitely have to make sure that you're not so comfortable that you go work all day for somebody else and chasing their dreams and then just come home and watch TV all night. Like you need to be willing to put the hours in for your dreams, even if that means you put everything else in your life on hold.
I agree. Those are great, great tips. So it's clear that mindset and also timing are very crucial in this industry. Once someone takes the first step, scaling becomes the next big challenge. And this leads me to my next question. You own 837 rental units, as I saw online, and have flipped hundreds of houses. And you also specialize in helping businesses and individuals invest passively. How do you approach finding cash flowing properties? What areas do you invest in these days or recommend? And how can investors effectively scale their portfolios?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple things that I'll say. So after being in the single family space for I guess, well, 16 years now, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I started getting involved with large multifamily syndications. And so, if people really want to be passive, there's nothing wrong with partnering with somebody else or becoming a what's called an LP, basically a passive investor to put your capital into other people's deals. That's pretty common in the multifamily space. And so, if you're not willing to put or you're not able to put the time in to go find deals, manage deals, and all that. There's nothing wrong with being passive, and that's one of the easier ways to be passive. Um, I will say this, as a single family investor, it's hard to find deals that cash flow much these days. And I had a mentor that when I very first started, and he was one of the larger property owners in the Dallas Fort Worth market that told me to never buy because of banking on appreciation. You should always buy on cash flow. But I can tell you, and the reason he said that is because for the past, I guess 40 years or so that he's been an investor, there really hadn't been a lot of appreciation in Texas, but that's changed dramatically over the past 5, 6, 10 years even. There's been massive appreciation here to the point to where it's hard to find cash flowing properties. And so properties don't cash flow much here, but the appreciation is very real, and I think that's going to continue on. And so I just actually did a social media video on this about that. I generally think that active real estate investing and passive go hand in hand. So if you do enough deals, every once in a while you can afford to keep one. It's hard to just go buy rentals if you're not independently wealthy or have some other cash flow stream that allows you to cover your active expenses. So as a real estate investor, you've got marketing costs. I have costs of my office, my team, my overhead, all those things, right? And the only way for me to offset those costs is to have kind of active income from wholesaling and fix and flipping. And then every once in a while, I can afford to kind of save one for retirement, right? And so I think those things kind of go hand in hand. So if you're out there, you don't do any real estate and you just want to start buying houses, it's possible. But I can tell you that, in the past month or two, even, I've had make readies on my rentals that are between 25 and $40,000 and something that cash flows two or $300 a month. Like that just ate up my cash flow for the next like 5, 6, 7 years on one deal, if everything else goes perfectly right. So it helps to have a portfolio. It helps to have another stream of income, and you're just banking on kind of long-term appreciation. So they should cash flow, but it doesn't take much for your hopes and dreams to be dashed by one kind of bad make ready. So just be, kind of smart about it and just know that it's hard to just be a passive investor. And if you're going to do that, it's probably better to be in larger multifamily syndications where they have hundreds of doors and any one unit going south is not going to take the whole ship down. In single family, one house, if you only have one, it's either going great or it's a nightmare. And if it's going great now, it's probably just a matter of time before the nightmare begins.
Thanks for sharing that. So on to our next question. Scaling and choosing the right market is very, very important, especially with a changing landscape. So where do you see the real estate market heading to in the next 5 to 10 years? And how should investors prepare for these changes?
So I don't know the answer to that. I used to get my crystal ball out and think that I was smarter than everybody else. I was an economist. The reality is I don't know. Here's what I know is that a lot of what provides opportunity for us as real estate investors is things that happen in people's life that nobody wants to happen, but are just the fact of life. Death, divorce, inheritance, uh, tenants tearing up a landlord's property. And a lot of those things are going to continue. It doesn't really matter what happens with the market. Like there could be more financial distress in down markets, and that probably is happening right now. But things like death, divorce, inheritance, and problem rentals and all that, they're just not going away. Like those are going to continue to create opportunities for people like us to come in and help people solve those problems. And I think the more kind of tools you have in your tool belt, irregardless of what's going on in the overall marketplace, who the president is, or any of those things, if you can help people with real estate problems solve problems, there will always be opportunities for us.
Couldn't agree more. So as we spoke about the future, planning for the future is key, but also thinking about the broader impact that, we're making as investors is very, very important. The next couple of questions are going to be more inspirational, more about your personal life. So let's talk about your legacy. What do you hope your legacy will be in the real estate world, and how do you measure the impact of your work on the lives of your students and peers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say at this point in my career, I think a lot about that. Like, how do I impact other people? And so I think as somebody that's been around for a long time that is trying to impact other people and really trying to make a difference out there, y- every once in a while, it's not like you hear it every day. And so you just kind of have to know that you're doing good things out there, but it always helps to hear from people of like, hey, the whole reason I got into this business was because of you, or I would never be here if it wasn't for something that you said to me or did for me or whatever, like in years past. And so I do think that as a real estate investor, if you've been around for a long time and you've had any level of success, the allure of real estate kind of falls off. You're like it's just a vehicle that allows me to do what I want to do or give my family the lifestyle that I want or we want or whatever. So you have to ultimately find a target that is something more meaningful, which for me is impacting other people. So I think it's just important to think about the things that you're doing now and how you can teach people behind you that you just kind of plant seeds that hopefully benefit them and teach them in a way to where hopefully they'll go plant seeds and kind of reciprocate that process going forward. So I won't say that I've cracked the code on it, but I do think that ultimately serving other people is just important for all entrepreneurs to get to a point to where they probably don't need to work anymore. And what gives meaning to getting up every day and like doing the next thing, it's positively impacting, others out there.
So I can tell you, you've positively impacted me by coming. When I came to Investor Fuel, I loved it. Met lots of great people, learned a lot. So
Awesome.
that's so despite your success, what's one area of real estate or business that you're still actively learning or improving?
You got to learn everywhere, right? I think you always have to be a student. And so I think, we just talked about it in a previous question, like what's going to happen over the next 5 years. I don't know, but I know it's going to require a different skill set than what I have now and than what most people have now. Like you constantly have to evolve of how to solve problems that sellers have or even buyers. And so I think it's important to generally always be a student. And you just have to focus on, your skill set. I would say if I had to kind of name one, I think kind of sales or influence, like how to be able to influence the decisions of other people is a skill that you could just never outgrow. You have to constantly be a student to try to, um, impact the decisions that others make. That's really just a sales skill overall.
It's great to see that even seasoned experts like you value ongoing learning. So let's talk about the influences that have shaped your journey. Who or what has been the biggest influence in your career, and what lesson from them do you carry with you every day?
Yeah, I would say honestly, I'm going to name two. I know you said one. So, one would be my mother, who tomorrow it'll be 2 years since she passed away. She was always a huge influence and kind of, I grew up in a very blue collar family, was the first person to go to college, let alone grad school, and, probably learned a lot of really hardworking skills from my family who, again, very blue collar for the most part. But my mom always believed in me and kind of told me that I could do anything that I wanted to. And so always very inspirational. And I saw how hard she worked. And that inspired me to kind of always work hard, even at a point where I probably don't have to work as hard as I do now. I still work hard. The other really is my wife. Like she really, uh, motivates me to kind of push forward and help kind of get our family to the next level. Again, it's not necessarily about money now. It's just more about impact, but how I can become a better, husband, father, uh, just person, entrepreneur overall. And so, she's discreet in her techniques, but it kind of comes through of like, how I can continue to improve myself. Not that she explicitly says it, but I want to kind of level up because I want my son to see that. I want my wife to feel that I'm always working hard to kind of earn that respect and trust. And so those are the two that have impacted me the most.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. They both sound amazing. So, beyond financial gain, how do you define success in your real estate ventures and mentorship programs?
Well, I can't define it for other people, but I feel like, there's plenty of students or people that I have that honestly, there's students that I've had in the past and coached them before they had ever done a single deal that have accomplished way more than I have in real estate at this point. So it's always cool. Unfortunately, those are not they're not a percentage wise. There's a lot of people that can't get out of their own way to achieve the success that they want, but there are always a subset there of people that have done amazing things. And so, again, I think real estate's a vehicle for living the life that you want to live, living it on your own terms, impacting your family's life and maybe even your family tree for generations to come. So I think a lot of people that I surround myself with, a lot of people that are in my mastermind, we focus on the benefits of kind of making money now and enjoying the good life, but also kind of building a long term and creating kind of memories and experiences and things like that. So the more I see people that are around me that are doing things like that, and if I've had some sort of influence on it at all, definitely makes me feel good.
That's amazing. Can you talk more about your mastermind or the ventures that you're currently working on, go more into detail? And do you have like a dream project or initiative you hope to accomplish that goes beyond your current businesses?
So I would say, Investor Fuel, it's a mastermind for professional real estate investors. We're really a community of like-minded entrepreneurs that are holding each other accountable, building amazing kind of not just business relationships, but personal relationships where we travel and do a lot of great things together. But it's really all of us acting as kind of a board of advisors for each other and helping hold each other accountable and helping others in the group see what's possible to kind of help you level up, right? So it's so much more than that, but in a nutshell, it's a community of people that is very much like a country club for professional real estate investors that are doing business and doing life together ultimately. In terms of uh, dream projects or anything like that, at the end of the day, I tend to invest more passively in real estate investments these days and put all of my focus into my two businesses, which are my two active businesses, Investor Fuel, which we want to continue to grow and add more value to our current members. And then Investor Machine is our lead gen company where we're kind of a data company that does direct mail for real estate investors. So quite some time, I was always the guy that had shiny object syndrome and starting new businesses or trying new projects. And really for the past few years, I've just found ways to innovate inside of what I'm already doing instead of necessarily going out to do brand new things. So no new projects, just innovating inside of what I already have and trying to make them better and better.
Well, that's all the questions I have for today, Mike. Thanks again. Is there anything else you would want to add?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. We're at a point in the market cycle here where I think some people question, is this a good time to invest? And I think the reality is for the pro investor, your cheese has just moved, but there's a lot of opportunity still out there. I know plenty of people that are absolutely crushing right now and having their best year ever. And some of it is mindset, some of it is technique, you just have to kind of ebb and flow. For the new real estate investors, there's still plenty of opportunity out there for you. And so if you've wanted to do this for any period of time, don't allow where we're at in the market cycle or who's in the Oval Office or whatever to help you decide whether you should get started or not now. The reality is I know hundreds of the top real estate investors in the country, and if any of them have one regret, one common regret, it's always that they wish they had started sooner. So right now is the time to start. If you haven't started already, now's the time.
Thanks again, Mike, for sharing such valuable insights and inspiring stories. I know our listeners will take a lot away from this conversation. And again, if you want to follow Mike, you can find him on social media and his website and any other sources they can find you.
Those are the main things. Yeah, Facebook and Instagram, or investorfuel.com or investormachine.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike.